there's no like limit to what you can achieve, right? Like you're saying, kind of, Sophie, like everything is in your own hands. You're in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
You can create anything you want.
Life is all about relationships. Lovers, family, body, or money. How satisfied you are can be completely explained by how you relate to things around you. This is Sophie Jaffe, and together with my husband, Dr. Adi Jaffe, we are here to explore and teach you how to maximize your relationships and achieve a happier life. Let's get ignited.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Ignited Relationship Podcast. I'm Adi Jaffe.
And I'm Sophie Jaffe.
And we're in family month, man. Still family. I love family. When we started this theme thing, what I really, really loved about it was that we talked to so many people about so many topics. And even with some of the people we've had this month, I don't know that we would have focused so much on the importance of the people around them. And so I really, really love this. And with that, I want to read one of the reviews because you guys are all our family, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
And so we've got one from Gemini Jade, and it says, True North, 5 stars. Feel so seen, I can't be unseen, ! And then it just says, you guys.
Oh, I love that.
Thank you so much, Gemini Jade. You know, it's amazing what happens when you get seen. And I know for a lot of us on this theme of kind of family, for a lot of us, we didn't necessarily always get seen, or we didn't at least feel seen by everybody around us. So the fact that we can help some of you do that is just magical for us. So thank you so much for that. And Sophie's got a quote for us.
This quote is from Michelle Olack. And then I learned the spiritual journey had nothing to do with being nice. It was about being real, authentic, having boundaries, honoring my space first and others second. And in this space of self-care, being nice just happened. It flowed, not motivated by fear, but by love.
I love that. Love that. It goes so well along with that, the conversation we have today about finding balance and really protecting your needs. And also this thing that we say a lot here, I feel like, which is when you really understand what being selfish means, it extends far beyond being self-serving in the moment, but it extends to understanding that the way you treat others, the people you surround yourself with, and how you treat them and how you see them even creates an environment, almost like this protective bubble, this life around you that elevates, right? We all know that quote, a rising tide lifts all boats. Mm-hmm. When you start doing that for your family, your people, the people you surround yourself with, it helps you in the process. And so many of the people we talk to are a good example of that, right? It's like their life, their light, what they provide to the world brings everybody up around them, which then carries them up as well.
Yeah, I saw a quote yesterday and it was something about like, I want to be the type of girl that fixes other women's crowns, but doesn't tell anyone that it was crooked to begin with. Like it's not just I want to lift just for my own well-being, my own peace of mind. I just want to lift those around me. I don't need to brag about it. I don't need to let anyone know, oh, they used to be down, in the dumps. Like, no, that's just the type of person I want to be. I want to lift those around me and I want to be my truest light and my best self for me. And then as a byproduct, affect those around me. Yeah.
It's so important. We talked to Lauren here today and she talks about having worked kind of not a stereotypical corporate job because it was a startup, but the hustle of
9 to 5
of working a corporate business job and the toll that it took on her being able to live the kind of life that she wanted. And I know that's something we struggle with. I mean, we talk about this a lot, guys, like in our own life, we talk about this a lot because I used to 100% live in that place where just being busy and working 50, 60, 70 hour weeks was the indication that you were moving in the right direction. But so much stuff was off. Like, I'd have like cold sores that would come out of nowhere and like that, what is
Stress.
that? But your body just going, we're so stressed. We literally can't deal with this virus that is around us all the time. I would have trouble sleeping. I would sleep terribly. I would wake up tired. Like, so much of life sucked as I was doing exactly what I thought I was supposed to be doing. And, talking about balance is easy, but what that actually means, and it goes along with the review and the quote that you just read, is understand yourself and then see yourself and let others see you so that you really have your needs met.
Well, you can't pour from an empty cup, whether you're a parent, you're a business person, you're in a relationship. You must fill yourself up, and you must have strong boundaries, like the quote says. Boundaries is a form of self-care. It's not being selfish. The boundaries in my life now keep me so sane, keep me so healthy. Like, even in like my own family, like, speaking of family, I saw some family members while I was on the East Coast. Like, those boundaries are what allow me to stay sane and allow me to be a good mom, allow me to stay present to my life. I wasn't triggered by any of the things that happened. I just laughed at them and learned from them. That's it. I didn't have to get emotionally invested. And that is new programming. Instead of spiraling out of control after getting triggered and like lashing into a fight or trying to have my voice heard. Like, no, I just don't care because I'm in my bubble of like taking care of my kids, being a great mom, being a great wife, being a friend to my best friend I was visiting. Like, being around family can be so hard and so triggering.
So true.
It's so hard sometimes. Like, truly, for all of us, even those of us that are doing the work all the time. I'm constantly doing the work. But this time I really got to see my own growth because it's been since Thanksgiving, since I saw some of these family members. And I really noticed like my own, wow, okay. Like, I didn't feel, remember you were like, do you feel anxiety like approaching this experience? And I was like, no, I'm good, because I had boundaries and I trusted the boundaries. Now that I've had this many years of these boundaries being in place, I trust them and I trust myself.
And your practice, like, now you know how to do this. When you and, let's say, your mom started talking even again, you didn't know how to do it. No. So every moment was brand new. And
it was always like shock. Like, it was like shock therapy. Like, I didn't know what was going to come at me. I didn't know what she was going to pull out of the woodwork. I didn't know how her response or reaction would be. Now it's like, I keep care of my side of the street clean. That's my intention in all my relationships, is just like, I'm going to do the work. I'm going to be a great friend, a great daughter, a great sister, like whatever I can do to provide safe, as long as it feels safe to me.
Yeah. I think what a lot of people forget, or maybe they just don't pay attention to, is your family, your siblings, your parents, especially if they're like in the house you grew up in and they still live in the neighborhood. What's beyond family of origin? They bring you literally back to the place you were in when you were a child. Right. When you get nearer the house you grew up in, the people you used to hang out with, the town, your family for sure, your body, your brain adjusts back to the way you used to behave. Absolutely. Unless you, in a very deliberate, active way, practice changing the habits.
You have to. Yeah. I'm like going to therapy with my stepmom right now, and holler if you're listening, Phyllis, I love you. Thank you for showing up and doing the work. It is so hard. It is so hard to change these programmings. Like, and she has her programming and you have yours, and it's different because you grew up in different families, and then you try to bring them together. Right. We grew up in different homes, different families, different ways of parenting. And then she's my stepmom. She didn't birth me. So we don't have that like tie in that way, but we do keep showing up to each other because we love each other. And our work right now is showing up differently to each other. I am a grown-ass adult who's 35 years old and has 3 kids and a marriage of 11 years, or 10 years. I'm very different than when I first met her, when I was a little girl. And so it's a constant relearning and reprogramming so that we can have healthy relationships in this moment. And who I was when I met you and who you were when we met, 15 years ago and got married 10 years ago, every couple of years, every 6 months, every 3 months, we're changing. We are so different now than we were 6 months ago. You have to constantly check in and see, where are we going? Does it feel good right now? Can I show up and be vulnerable and open with you? Do I want to do the work? Will I show up with you in hard times and go to therapy? Or, in the case of my mom or my brother, like, I'm not in it right now with them. I don't want to go to therapy with them. I don't want to have a long-term relationship that's like, we're in each other's life all the time. But you have to decide, who do you want in your life? Who do you want to do the work with? What do you have the energy for? And then just show up and do it.
Yeah, and that's true at every level, right? So again, I'll bring back something we talked about in a recent episode, but the whole idea of the people you surround yourself with. So many of us talk about what we want our life to look like and what we want our day-to-day to look like and where we're hoping to go, but then we surround ourselves with people who are in no way, shape, or form on that track. And
I think a lot of times with the work, you kind of get, quote, rid of the friends that don't serve you in that way, but then you have to replace it with something. You can't just not.
Otherwise you leave a void.
Right. I know people that are close to me that don't spend a lot of time with physical people in front of them. Like, that's also to worry about. Like, you should definitely have people in your life that make you proud, that lift you, that hold you to a certain expectation, a certain norm, and expect you to change and grow and be authentic to you. And that is constantly shifting and changing, but you have to have those people around you that don't hold you up on a pedestal, but instead force you to be the most authentic version of who you are and do the work.
Yeah, and I think that can come in a lot of different ways. So having family and people who've known you for a really, really long time is actually really nice because they do anchor you to who you are and where you came from, but you also don't want to be anchored there all the time because you're no longer
that person
where you were when you were 4, 5, 7, 10, whenever you met them. So it's about a balance. You know, I saw this woman speak, I forget her name, but at one of those marketing conferences I went to, and she kind of compared it to the two hands. On one hand, you have the people who've been there for a long time, the friends that, you know, have been with you through thick and thin. They've known you since you were 6, 7, 9 years old, whatever. And a lot of them are just not into your new lifestyle because they didn't decide to go on this road with you. So whether you're now into yoga and veganism, or you want to travel around and ohm until you can't breathe anymore, or you decide to go into the corporate world and they're all vegans and holistic nurse practitioners, and they kind of look at you like, why are you chasing the money? Like, whatever it is, the shifts that have happened, they're not on board with you. And a lot of people, maybe not a lot of people, but some people think to themselves, well, then I can't have them around because they anchor me. I think you can just balance it. You can bring additional people. That's the second hand. Bring additional people into your life who are on the same road with you, who will be like travel companions, right? Like, literally imagine you're on a bus together and you wouldn't bring a bunch of people on the bus with you who want to go somewhere completely differently than you and have nobody whose end point is where you want to go. Because unfortunately, odds are the bus is not going where you want it to go. But if you have a nice balance and you keep the people who are important, you keep in touch with them, even though you're traveling a different road, then the phone calls, the FaceTimes, the couple of times a year when you meet and you connect, whatever your level of connection with them is not weighed down by the fact that you're resentful that they're not all respectful of this new road that you're on. So I think that's a balance.
Definitely. I think that this trip that we did on the East Coast, that's the importance. Like, the fact that you came for that weekend, it was short, but it was sweet. And there's so much magic in that. Like, it's important for our friends to feel us in the flesh, to connect, to have conversations, you know, that are open and vulnerable. And, you know, for you to be with Eva's husband, and, you know, he doesn't have friends like you. It's important for us all to really connect in a vulnerable, open way with people that allow us to really be ourselves and celebrate that, and have conversations about things that really matter, even if they think differently. And for us, we do live in a bubble. We live in a bubble of like-minded people, and, you know, the town that we visited is very conservative. Like, even the bikinis I wear are like frowned upon. I don't even.
So are mine. My bikinis are totally different when we go to Bethany.
Well, you notice which bathing suits you picked.
I did.
You were conscious not to pick one of the bathing suits that you would wear to
in Israel
a West Hollywood, you know, pool. You would not wear the same one.
I did not wear the short Rolling Stone swimsuit.
You wouldn't.
Yeah, I want to also say the people we hang out with, because you've had some bad experiences in that town with people who were too close-minded.
Right.
But this specific family, there's also a lot of respect.
And they've been along for the ride.
So we get to sit there and have these conversations where we don't necessarily come from the exact same point, but we respect them, they respect us. And I feel that a lot in, you know, in the conversations. It's also important, you mentioned the bubble here. It's also important for me regularly to connect with people who don't feel like they're in this bubble, because, you know, I joke about this all the time, but it's also true. Like, to the rest of the country, even New Yorkers, California is where the crazy people go. And we sort of celebrate that, and we we live that and we hold it up as our kind of freak flag, right? Like kids running around shoeless, the vegan movement, the psychedelic movement, like all these things that start here, and some of them permeate through the rest of society and some of them don't, and they kind of stay here. But we take all those things completely for granted. It's almost like living in LA on a regular basis. You're almost waiting, in 6 months, what is somebody going to come up with that we haven't heard of yet that is going to push the envelope even further?
Totally.
I like also having people in my life that keep me anchored, like I said, to some of the more basic things in life, so that I don't fly away on this notion that anything goes everywhere. Because the people I help, the people I work with, a lot of them don't live here. They're all over the country, all over the world. And I need to be able to understand and really connect to that way of thinking about the world.
That's why it's so important to travel. Go back and listen to our July episodes of Adventure. In the last several years, we've had lots of traveling podcasts where we talk about like traveling with kids. Last summer with, that episode that we did, there's so many great gems of episodes where we just share about opening up your mind, opening up your perspective. We've interviewed such amazing guests on like travel and connecting with others that are outside your normal bubble and how vital that is.
Absolutely. And, stay tuned. We're going to take a little break here as usual. We got Lauren Kleinman on the other side of this. And, the conversation really centers on how do you pay attention to that internal voice as you have that evolution, as you mentioned, Sophie, where you keep changing and evolving. How do you pay attention, and how do you not necessarily always create upheaval in your life, but rather listen to that internal voice and change and adjust as your compass moves?
Absolutely.
See you on the flip side.
Bye. This episode of the Ignited podcast is brought to you by Philosophy Superfoods. The Philosophy offers cleanses and other nutritional products that are unlike any of the other supplements and detoxification programs on the market. Why? Because they actually nourish the body with whole, live, nutrient-rich foods instead of depriving you and leaving you hungry. Have you ever tried a cleanse only to find out that you can't make it through a whole day because you're starving? Ever try a superfood shake that made you nauseous because it was so disgusting you'd rather not eat? The Philosophy fix all that with a simple set of offerings that load up your body with nutrients while actually tasting good. Makes sense, right? Each of the Philosophy superfood and protein blends is vegan, raw, gluten-free, and has absolutely no filler ingredients. With over 15,000 satisfied customers, including some of the world's biggest celebrities like George Clooney, Gerard Butler, Lea Michele, and over 10 years of experience, this is the best stuff you can get. To buy some or find out more info, go to our website, thephilosophy.com.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the conversation piece of today's podcast. We've got Lauren Hayes with us today. Welcome, Lauren.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an honor to be here with you guys.
Yeah. It's so nice to have you. You were telling us a little kind of child rearing, I'm tired and trying to get to bed disaster story from yesterday that we don't necessarily have to repeat if you don't want to. But what I thought was amazing about it was, you've done a lot in the business, PR, marketing world, right? That's been your world for, a little more than a decade, right?
Yeah, ever since I graduated from college at 21. So I'm approaching 30 now, but I've always been part of really fast growing startups for whatever reason. Those are the types of companies that I land in. And I guess we could get into this later, but I feel like I've always only known the grind when it comes to work. And we could talk about it later, but that was a lot of the kind of motive behind my recent transition to leaving my last job and becoming a consultant.
And when you say that, I know you mentioned to us that part of that was about being able to get what people are calling work-life balance, or some integration between what you do to make a living and what you do for your job, and the rest of it, like your family and your kids and everybody else that matters a lot. Yeah.
The things that are actually important. Yeah, I'm happy to like hop through, just my thoughts there. But I I think one, I was working at a health company that was very health focused. And I was very fortunate because the culture that they had, internally in the company was amazing. We would have like yoga teachers come or meditation people come and, but that was all at work. But then outside of work, I couldn't find the space for myself at all. Like a lot of people I've seen on Instagram, not so much in real life, but on Instagram, can balance everything and wake up early and go work out and, be with their family and spend quality time. And then they are also killing it in business. And, they come back and, I don't know, do Pilates after work and then make dinner for their kids. And
I see you watching our Instagram feed.
I see you love a good highlight reel.
I think I'm narrating your life. But I was finding it impossible. I couldn't. I was exhausted every morning. The mornings that I had, I wanted to sleep in. And I'd be, rushing out to work in this like anxious fury. And I couldn't find any space for myself. And I just at one point, like something clicked, like this is just too ironic. Like I'm working at this health company and I haven't, worked out in like, I don't know, 6 months at one point. And, beyond that, like I started thinking like, this is not, well, I can go in kind of more detail, but like when I left, I was like, okay, what would my perfect dream day look like? And that's the life that's like the life that, it's kind of cheesy, but that's the life that I want to be living. Like life is short. I was in a really traumatic car crash when I was younger, and I've been really close to death in my life. And I think I've carried that with me my whole life, just that trauma and I guess awareness. It's more of an awareness. It's just something that's always in the back of my head that I always think about. And there was something that kind of clicked, I guess it was like around New Year's, of like, is this really what I want to be doing? I think we're conditioned in society to feel like our 20s like must be grinding and, proving yourself and, really heavily work oriented. But in that, I felt like I really lost like the magic and like balance of my life. And so, it was, I guess sometime in January, I started thinking like, is this really what I want to be doing? And there were a lot of, other factors too. My last job was absolutely incredible. I was really fortunate to not only work alongside incredible people, but, be in a company that I truly cared about. It was in a lot of ways a dream job. But at the end of the day, I started thinking like, what would my perfect day look like?
Yeah.
And not that every day has to be perfect. It's not realistic, but how can I get it at least like a little bit closer to what I really want my life to look like?
Well,
and when I
started even put thought into what that is, because a lot of people never sit down and think about it. We literally have an exercise in one of my programs where it's called the perfect day, because
I love that.
We want people to write down where are you eating breakfast?
Right.
With whom? Where are you having lunch? What are you doing all day? And people really love being able to think that deeply on what they want their life to look like.
Yeah, I love that. It gives me chills. It's weird. It's like when you can envision it, you can create it, right? But if you can't even picture it, there's no way you're going to manifest it into your life. So I definitely started thinking about what that would look like pretty deeply. And I realized my dream day wasn't anything extravagant. It was actually pretty simple. There was no like, crazy travel or, I don't know, lavish life. It was like, I just want more time, to spend like in peace, not thinking about work or emails with my family. So more quality time, essentially. I want to like wake up, make nutritious food. Maybe there's a hike in there. Maybe there's yoga in the morning. And then I want to work with companies that I'm extremely passionate about and that are, doing some force of, creating some force of positive change in the world. That was kind of like a filter for which I thought I would onboard any of my clients. And it's turned out that all the companies that I'm working with are in some way doing that, which I thought was kind of cool. But like I said, like it wasn't anything too complicated, but I realized even from that, I was somehow like pretty far off. I didn't have that piece. And I think, when you feel that, what's the word? There's a pull in your heart, I think, when you're, there's an actual word for it, but, when you're not on the right track, right? Like you can feel something is off. And I think my whole life, I've really tried to honor that and align myself to, what I feel I authentically should be doing. And it was like, I guess 4 months ago now that I literally had one day that I was like, I'm not doing this one more day. And it was pretty soon thereafter that I left and started thinking about what I wanted to do next and how I could get a little bit closer to creating my dream days.
I love that. And I think this also comes back to the idea of just having intention with something, like whether it be big or small. I've noticed really in the last couple years how having an intention for whatever it is can completely transform the outcome and the experience itself. Mm-hmm. So whether or not it's like going on a date night with a D, like if I show up with that intention of like, I want to feel connected, I want to feel
so true
sexiness between us, I want to feel passion, I want whatever it is, if I go into it with an intention versus just showing up and kind of being sloppy and like being on my phone and being disconnected and thinking about work or whatever it is, like, obsessive thoughts about like an insecurity or a fear or whatever it is, if I show up with an intention and to a day, to a date, to anything, to my job, it just, the outcome is just different. And I think that's so kind of what you're applying is like, okay, right. Like how can I have each day with more intention? Like these little small shifts can make such a big difference, but it's how can we show up differently to our experience in the world? And even, your dream job and dream existence and dream, the way your day is laid out is very personal. And, what's important to me. And it's fun to continuously fine tune. That's the great thing is like, it's a continuous fine tuning. Like I find myself like I live my dream life now that I dreamt up the last time that I dreamt up my daylight. But like now I have to sit down and like, okay, what's next? What are the next layers that I need to uncover?
Right. And it's always, as like it's funny because I left and I, had this intention for my dream days. And now it sounds weird, but I'm realizing just how ambitious I am. I've always felt ambitious professionally, but it's like another level when you are working for yourself, which I'm sure you both know.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Because there's no like limit to what you can achieve, right? Like you're saying kind of, Sophie, like everything is in your own hands. You're in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
You can create anything you want. So for me, I realized my head is like, what are my dream clients? Like, what are the best clients that I could ever envision getting? And what is like the structure of the ways that I work with them? And how many am I working with? And like, unfortunately, that's led to like 10 clients right now, which is, I don't have an assistant. I haven't hired anyone and I don't really plan to. But like, I think, Sophie, as you're saying, like I'm having to take a step back and already like realign myself with like, I'm already, getting off of like where I wanted to be with my intention. Yeah. Just overloading myself with stuff.
Well, and you're in like this new dreamlight scenario. So it's like you jump all in. With anything new, you want to like just do it all. Yes, and it's kind of like you do the extremes and then you find your balance in the gray area between. So like soon you'll figure out maybe it's 3 to 4 clients that are on a retainer. Maybe it's this, maybe that. And you have to jump all in and really feel it and then be like, okay, now let me scale back and really set more intentions.
Well, and you also, there's that saying, but you don't know what you don't know. And so when you want to change your life, you have a plan of what that's going to look like and you imagine it. And by imagining it, you create this alternative reality that you haven't lived in a while. The thing is that reality is not informed by what that life will really be like. It's informed by what you want it to look like. And so then you start that and you get to spend more time with your family, or you get to work from home so you don't have the commute that you've had, or whatever the benefits are that you were looking for. You get those because that's the thing you knew you wanted to put in place. And then life presents itself. Like when we started, I used to work outside the house. I mean, I ran a company, and at some point I was out of the house, 70 hours a week or whatever. I would leave at like 5:45 in the morning because we lived in the valley. And I would be back at 8 or 9 p.m. depending on whether I led groups or not that night. And so we knew when that ended that I wanted to work from home. Sophie wanted me to work from home. She didn't want me to get an office. Well, I started working from home. And then Sophie was like, you're all up in my space. Why are you up here doing conference calls where I work? And I was like, well, you wanted me to work from home. Right. But we didn't have that reality. We didn't know what that reality really looked like. And then, so I created a home office like in our garage, because I still get to not commute. I still get to walk downstairs, but I wouldn't have known that was part of the reality. And I think what I'm hearing for you, Lauren, is it's like you get to create this perfect day in your head, and then you go into it with the understanding that you're going to have flexibility
and reassess and really experience it. Like you can learn as much as you want to learn from looking at someone else's life, from reading a book and seeing how they did it. But it's you in your body, and like you said, you feel it in your own body when something doesn't sit right. And again, your perfect day or your perfect job might sit right in your body, but not in mine. So it's that, that intricate redesigning as you go that only you can feel in your bones. And like with the D's example, of course I still wanted him here, but not on top of, my space, and not eating all my snacks because all of a sudden he's home and like eating my $44 garlic spread. Like, it's like it
was really good, by the way.
You have to like readjust within the adjustment. And that's the beauty of like creating your own reality, is that you get to create your own reality and it's personal to you.
So Lauren, I have a question, because you wanted more space for family and spend time. What has that actually looked like for you? This is the theme for this month for us is family, friends and family. I want to hear about, once you made this shift, what was that like?
Wow. Not what I envisioned. It was probably the easiest way to say it. So I actually took over my husband's home office because he actually has an office outside, but I'm like, okay, I'm moving in here. So like redesigned it, tried to make it as neutral as possible, but moved into my husband's office, which is like directly across from my 22-month-old Alexander's room. And essentially where I'm at right now, because I pretty much work almost every day here. Sometimes I'll go to Malibu. Sometimes I'll go to a coffee shop. Like maybe one day a week, I'll go into a client's office. But I do enjoy working from home. I'm closer to my son. But with a 22-month-old, I realize it's a little bit challenging. Like I'm literally trapped in this office right now, because the minute I step outside and my son sees me, if I go away, he's going to start crying. So like I have to like sneak out if I need to go to the bathroom or I need water.
Of my life. Yesterday I took an interview and 2 important calls from my bed because I wrote to my assistant. My assistant was sitting down in the kitchen and I was like, hey, just so you know, like everything's good. I just can't come down because if Noah sees me, then she's going to want me. And I'm on calls. There's no way I can hold her and deal with that right now because they have to have quiet. They're recording this. So like that, I sneak around if I'm going from, oh no, I forgot my water. That's like a whole thing. I have to text.
Oh yeah, you're screwed.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's actually,
it's the rest of the day that you won't have water.
Right.
Well, you started, when I first saw you doing an interview after a shower.
Oh yeah.
Like she went upstairs to shower.
Let's be clear, ass naked trying to take, trying to make
doing
an
one
interview. Yeah.
and then on the bed for the second one, all because you couldn't leave the room.
No.
So, yeah, we understand.
So,
mom life.
Yeah, I think it's, I guess going back, realistically, like it's been amazing because I save, I don't know, maybe an hour in like commuting time. And I have found that I have more space in the morning to meditate or do a class. Although, I mean, honestly, most mornings I wake up and just start working. So that I need to realign.
We got to talk about that.
I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like in a lot of ways, I'm still like this. I'm still grinding. And I think because I'm starting my own business, it's, the work is harder, but it's like more rewarding. And so I've become like already like, just like, I don't know. Like I said, like, I guess just so much more motivated, because everything is in my hands, but
it's so important to create your own boundaries when you decide to work from home or for yourself.
Yeah.
Because, look, when you have an office, let's say the workday starts at 9, you have to do your stuff before 9, and then you have, let's say, an hour for lunch, and then you're done at 6. And so you schedule things after work and you schedule things before work, and in the middle, you just kind of give it up to work.
Right.
But when you work for yourself, I mean, I know I feel this all the time. So if I don't know if you feel the same thing, but like, sometimes it's 9:30 and I'm thinking to myself, shit, I got stuff to do. I could sit with my laptop for 2.5 hours. And sometimes I'll be honest, I give into it. And, Sophie goes to bed and I sit down and finish off work. But most days what I try to do is at night, I try to say, you know what, I need this downtime so that I can show up tomorrow being my best. Because if I do this for 2 or 3 nights in a row, I'm going to burn out and then I'm going to be an asshole the next morning because I'll feel like I haven't gotten my space. And in the mornings, I'm not 100% good at this. I wake up first in the house and it's like a ritual. I have a little journal I write in for 5 minutes. I go exercise first thing. And I'm not going to lie and say that I don't ever look at my phone during that hour, but I absolutely try to minimize looking at my phone during that first hour because that's the gift of working for yourself is you get to determine what happens, but you're your own boss. So you have to enforce that gift.
Those boundaries are everything when you work for yourself because there are no boundaries set for you. There is no clock in, clock out. There is no commute and then you arrive at work. Like you're just setting your own, it's all about boundaries. And as a parent, that's mothers, fathers, we all with our children have to have boundaries. We all, if we work for ourselves, have to have boundaries. In relationship, we have to have boundaries. And and you don't know what you know until you jump into it. And then it's just important to be true to that and that you can constantly be reinventing it and you can constantly be changing the rules because it's your life.
Yep, exactly. But I think, overall, like I've definitely, I feel that I'm able to spend more time with my family, one, but 2, I also just feel more present when I am with them. And
you alluded to something with your husband. You didn't finish the thought. You said, and so I know with your kid, I totally get that, right? Can't leave because if he sees me. And then you said you took over your husband's home office. I don't know if it's just the therapist in me, but I had a feeling that as you were saying that, part of what you were saying was that there's like, it created some conflict.
Yeah, I think so this is actually why, Sophie, I was mentioning earlier that we're moving. We're getting like 2 more bedrooms in this new house we're moving into.
Amazing. Congrats.
Which will be nice. One will be a gym, which we don't currently have.
Yes.
And / my husband's like, I don't know, space, his own space.
The old man cave.
Yeah, exactly. But I think you're totally right. There was conflict and there was tension because already like our home office is split between our guest room. We have 3 bedrooms. So we have our master, we have the baby room, and then we have this like home office, but it's like a desk with our guest room. And so, I think my husband definitely felt like, okay, this is like the one room that's mine or that, he has for his stuff and his space. And, Even though he does have an office like outside, like I think in the house he wanted somewhere. And I didn't think about it, but I definitely took it over. And I just thought, well, it'll be easy. We'll just share the desk. Like when you're here and you want to use it, I'll go somewhere else, and like vice versa. But of course, like because I'm working full time here, like it's only me now in here. Yeah. So yeah, there was some tension, but
I think these things are I can say, I mean, now Sophie and I have been through these. How long have you guys been married?
We have been married 2 years, but we'd been together 8, long time.
Got it. Yeah. So I think for relationships, I just had this conversation with Maddie just yesterday. I think for relationships, these, what I call like mini conflicts, are actually incredible opportunities, because of course, each one of us, each part of the partnership, assuming you really like and love your partner, then each one of us really wants the best for the other person. But the reality is, we see the world through our own eyes. We have our limited perspective of what's going on. So you're thinking to yourself, hey, I don't have to leave the office anymore. I don't have to leave for the office anymore. I get to stay at home. We'll have more time together. I'll get to see my baby more. It's going to be amazing. And then you go, oh, here's a desk. He's not here most of the time. He goes away. Right. And we say, this works perfectly. I don't even have to create another space. I don't have to take over the dining room or like the, our little like breakfast nook, whatever the thing is. And so you set shop and you go, well, you're only here like an hour or two. For those times, I'll go away. What we don't understand is that's our perception. Right. The other person has their own perspective on it. And a lot of times, because I do a lot of work with couples, Sophie and I do a lot of work with couples too. And
we need to come see you.
I'd love to. The understanding is sometimes, hey, you're not understanding how this is impacting me. Right. And what can take a little bit of work is to get good at explaining that, because we see it. It's just, to us, when you look out into the world, you're seeing it through Lauren's eyes, through Lauren's experience, through Lauren's needs. And that doesn't mean you're selfish. It's just the perspective you have, right? It's almost like when you work with clients, they have an idea of what they want to do or their branding or whatever. And you walk in, you go, yeah, kind of, but that's not how everybody else sees you. So, it becomes difficult to see outside of yourself. And to me, these little, I call them these mini conflicts, are great, because then you and your husband have to figure out, it's not that big a deal in the grand scheme of things. Yeah. It's a desk in a house, but you guys have to figure out how to compromise on this thing. And and it's an incredible exercise for a lot of couples.
Yeah, it's so true. Communication is so key. And I think where like we get into conflict is we both just almost like, I don't know how to say this, but like state the facts. Like I was like, well, I need somewhere to work. Like you knew that I was, you knew that I was like quitting my job. What do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to like work out of the bed all day? Like, of course I'm going to be in the office. Like I'm starting my own business. Like you can't give me your desk, like I was all like insulted. And he was like, but that's mine. And I'm like, what? It's a desk, but that's not like, I think where the communication, it's like what I should say is like, how it's making me feel. And what he should say is, that is like the one place in the house that, I feel like I can put all my stuff, and that I feel like I have this one, whatever it is. But
yeah, I mean, I think you're right. We get so stuck on facts, and when we get stuck on facts and conflict, here's the problem. People believe that there's an objective truth to those facts. There's that saying, there are 3 versions of reality: yours, mine, and the truth. I don't even necessarily fully believe that the truth is one of the versions, because I mean, what's the truth? It really is his space. Right. And you really do need a place to work. If you fight that one out, it's like me against you, versus, you know what, honey, I feel really ignored because you just assumed you can come into my place. And it just makes me feel like what I do at that desk doesn't matter. Right. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I didn't realize that's what you thought. I thought you just wanted the desk for yourself. I didn't realize it made you feel like I don't appreciate what you do at it. Right. Okay. Well, I don't want to make you feel unappreciated. I think what you do is really great. How do we bring all that together? And then we're having a conversation where we're on the same team, trying to solve problems for each other, versus that whole, let me just prove to you that what I'm saying is right. Because once I show you the facts, you'll say, oh, your reality is more important than mine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
true. So big. I wish we could always learn to communicate that way. Cause, I feel like at least just personally in our own relationship, most of the conflict that we have is just, I feel a certain way. He feels a different way. And sometimes it is hard to understand the actual motives behind what's driving the conflict. And as you know, it's always a layer deeper. And I think in the case of the desk, which is like a small example, it is 100% exactly what you said of like, she must not think what I do at the desk is as important as what she's doing at the desk, or like, why is she the one that gets to use it or whatever? Like it is like a layer deeper always.
But here's the beauty of it, right? When you worked outside the home, you didn't have the opportunity to deal with this, because whatever is the truth in how you perceive each other's work and how you perceive how do we spend more time together. I think what is really important, and this is why we wanted to have a friends and family sort of month, is we can all make it look great from the outside. We can always take the pretty picture by the beach, or, hey, we're going camping, or we're packing up the car. Like that stuff is nice that we have those experiences. But the important thing is that, hey, when we get in the car and I take the wrong turn, how do Sophie and I deal?
How do we treat each other?
Conflict?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's so much more important than the photo, right? Or that moment. I feel like it's all the moments in between that you actually remember, right? Like if you take the wrong turn in the car and you're an asshole and you start cussing at her and, whatever, like that's what she's going to remember from the trip. She's not going to remember that perfect moment packing the car, and it's probably going to ruin your entire trip.
And she's going to delete that picture because she doesn't want to. F you.
Want to relive.
Yeah.
So can I ask, because I know there are people listening right now who either have really thought about working for themselves or working from home, people who maybe aren't working for a company they really love and they're despising it. So we talked about some of the barriers, some of the things that have been hard in going in. What have been some of the things that you loved most about kind of taking a step away from going into an office and working in what I'll call corporate, maybe startup, but corporate America, and going and working for yourself? What have been some of the greatest benefits?
Yeah. So many. Obviously one is I'm getting closer to balance, I think, or not balance, but some version of like living the life that I want to. Yeah. That's, I think, like one of the most obvious, but I guess more nuanced is like the daily stressors that in corporate life, or I feel weird saying corporate life because I worked at a startup and it was pretty amazing, but regardless, like there's daily stressors that are, I guess, like that you have nothing to do with.
Yeah, they're not under your control at all.
They're not under your control. They somehow impact you or your work or whatever. Like not to say that everything when you work for yourself is predictable. Obviously, you're always still working with other people, and there's always things that can go wrong and everything like that. But I feel more, I don't know how to say it, but not more in control, but in a sense, just like everything that I do is a direct impact of some sort of action that I take or took for the most part. Like not fully, because again, like if I'm working with an influencer, I'm working with a partner, whatever, like obviously their actions still make a big impact.
Yeah, totally.
But like, it's really like you're 100% in the driver's seat. Like I was kind of saying earlier, like, for me, like I said, I've realized how ambitious I am and how like I can like take that as far as I want to go. But going back, I also think like just a lot of the things that I thought were unnecessary, for example, like a ton of meetings or like having to take calls with partners that like I knew like probably wouldn't go anywhere and was like in a lot of ways a waste of time, or even like managing people. Like there's all these things that I learned about myself in working in that environment. Oh, I guess one of the last one, and maybe like the most important for me, was my entire life I've hated like being in an office at a desk.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Like every single day. Like, you know, now, like I said, I go to a coffee shop, I go into the client, I go off site, I'm like kind of all over the place. Like I'm not someone, and I've always known this about myself, I've just never taken action on it. Like when I quit my job the time before this one, I remember telling my boss, like, every time I walk into this office, I feel like a little piece of me is dying. I swear to God, I said those words, and he was like, holy shit. Like, oh my God, you got to go. It's bad.
Yeah.
But that's how I honestly felt. And no matter how great the culture is, and no matter how great the office is or whatever, there's something about me that I'm not a good, like, I'm not a happy employee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important to recognize about yourself.
I'm the exact same way.
Yeah, you wouldn't like maybe notice it. Like I was great with coworkers, and I showed up, and I
made the most of it.
Yeah, I looked happy. Like I make the most of my days, but like inside, like I didn't feel good about it.
Yeah.
There's like something that just like too like rat race-y for me or something.
Yeah, and we have to pay attention to those cues. That's what creates disease in the body, is when you don't
100%.
those cues, whether it's like something physical, something emotional, something spiritual. Like if we don't pay attention to those cues, that's when it becomes disease.
Right.
Do you find yourself 100%. Taking more time off or not yet?
Yes. Like I have just so much more flexibility. I mean, even doing this interview now, or pretty much my schedule now is like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm pretty full time because they're like my retainer clients and kind of my core clients. But then Thursday, Friday, I have a lot more flexibility. And I have like my lighter clients and the ones that like I'll help like, I don't know, 3 to 4 hours like a month. So not a huge time commitment. And in those, like, I guess like on Thursday, Friday, I have just a ton more flexibility to, work out or do errands or go to events or whatever I want to do. And that's like really nice. And I think, just going back to like the office environment, like I need that in my life. Like I need the diversity. I can't be in like a 9 to 5 every day. And I think in having this experience, like working for myself now, like I don't think I could ever go back. I mean, hopefully everything works out and I get to continue this path.
Yeah.
But I just feel like I could never go back to that.
You can't go back. It's like any experience. Once you feel it, once you taste it, you can't go back to what you were or what it was. You just can't. Right. It's impossible.
Right. Yeah.
So true.
Or if I did, I would not be happy.
Yeah. Miserable.
Yeah.
I think I hear a lot about, this is such an amazing transition period for you. And it's so cool. I can't wait to actually keep up with where this goes. I mean, I know now it's been 2 years that I've been working from home or so. Sophie, for you, it's been like 8 or 9 years. This is all you do.
I mean, the better part of my adult life has been working from home.
And so I can't wait to keep following up on how this works out for you and how it develops as you get more comfortable in the current situation and then keep expanding outside of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, there are 5 questions that we ask every single one of our guests, and I want to get into those so we make sure we get to them.
Awesome.
The first one is, what is the best advice you have ever received?
Ooh, I guess especially relevant to this conversation, it was actually from my former boss, who is the founder and CEO of Ritual. And I think she may have just shared this advice that she got from someone else, and I still think about it all the time. But she essentially said that there's no balance in life, and you have to choose 2 things that you want to prioritize for the week. whether it's like your health or your family or your work. But that essentially it's impossible to perfectly balance every week, all three.
Absolutely.
So I thought that was pretty interesting and kind of reframed the way that I thought about balance.
I think also, when it comes to balance, I think people really do think it's kind of like happiness. Like they think it's a destination.
Yeah.
It's 1,000,000,000% not. It's a constant striving for, yes, I want to have a happy hour, day, week. I want to have a happy life, but it's something that you strive for every day, and you do these little things all day long and make choices all day long to prioritize your happiness and your joy. But that doesn't mean that you're always in that state. You can't be. There is no always happy. There is not always balanced. You can't. Like look at the scales. It's such an intricate, personal, specific way to be. And the moments that you strike it feels so good, but that's not where it's just a constant, like, I want to obtain this and I want to feel more balanced and more happy and more joy. And that is 100% a way to be, but it's not like I'm here. I've arrived at balanced life. Like I figured out the secret.
I think the scale is actually an interesting example, because the only way to keep the scale fully balanced once you get it there is to not change anything.
Right.
And what would that even look like in life?
What a boring life. Like you could say that. Yeah, I guess that's the truth. You're giving up happiness and joy, adventure, any sort of evolution.
Right.
But then you're balanced. So I guess it's like, if you really want to be balanced, you could be, but you're giving up a lot of joy.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think to that point, I always think of this quote that maybe I heard when I was like 13, but it always really stuck with me, of like the only constant is change.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And always kind of come back to that one too.
Yeah. Question number 2, what is the proudest moment you've had to date?
It's got to be starting my own business. Probably is maybe that one or birthing my first son.
Yeah,
that's a big one.
Yeah.
Question number 3, on the flip side of that, what has been the most difficult moment you've had to date?
Probably, I didn't get into this at all, but probably my father is an alcoholic, and probably learning to set boundaries with a family member. Learning to set boundaries with a family member.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's something we're familiar with.
I feel like every family at some point.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and as we evolve, I think the hardest thing with family for me is like, as we evolve and as we grow, like our parents still see us as who we were, and we evolve, or like whoever in your family, like they see you as that little girl or that other version of who you were, but then you evolve. Like I'm a mom to 3 kids and have been in a serious, romantic relationship for 15 years. Like I am a very different person than I was in my childhood and in my teens. And, they're not along for the full ride. So they don't see the day-to-day changes, and they still expect you to be that other person. And you're just not. So you have to create boundaries, and you have to shift, and you have to find ways and there is no way for them to really see you as that new person.
No.
So it's more about like you just creating this new, and it's almost like a death of who you were. And that's always been really hard for me.
That's so true.
Personally. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot about, your evolution in this world of going from working at a health company and working at Ritual, going 6 months at a given time without working out. Like you've gone through all kinds of different cycles. Now that you are where you are in this moment, are there any self-care rituals that just keep you grounded? You try not to skip, or just bring you back to the best version of who you are?
Yeah. It's again, so ironic because I worked at a company called Ritual. And my focus in leaving was trying to incorporate more healthy rituals. And I feel like I'm not there yet, honestly. But I think this is like pretty boring, but the most grounding experience I have usually in my day is doing yoga.
Yeah.
I have like an amazing class that I go to. It's always the same class. And
where?
It's at Yoga Collective in Venice. Have you ever been there?
Yeah. Who teaches?
It's this girl. I forget her name. It was actually her last day yesterday. It was very emotional. She was crying. People in the class were crying.
Yeah, we love the Collective. It's on Rose in Venice.
Yeah.
Awesome studio to check out if you're ever in LA, to our listeners.
Yeah, there's something like, I don't know, very spiritual about that studio. It's, let's see, it's Daniel Zuccarelli. Do you know her?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Or Shayna Hiller. There's a few people that I go to, but yeah, there's something like spiritual in that class where there's been like a couple times where like there'll be someone who sings at the end and it sounds like it's part of like the actual like music, but it's like someone live singing in the class, or I don't know. There's just something in the air there that is pretty spiritual.
Yeah, there's something about actually going to a yoga studio instead of somewhere that has like cookie cutter, like, you know, we love a good hot 8, we love a good core power, but there's just something about a standalone studio where like the owners come in and out and there's a lot of love that you can feel, and it's just very different than something. I mean, it's just like anything, like the juice bar I worked at in my 20s is like, that was a spiritual experience for me to be there because you could feel the owners there and it was so like family but then like something like a Pressed, it's just different. You just don't, it feels different. There's a disconnect because it is more corporate.
Right.
But
I think with that studio too, like for better or worse, they cram people in. Like it is body to body, but I think there's something like magical about, you know, doing the positions in unison and how hot it gets, and, you know, being like a couple inches away from a stranger, but going through this shared experience with them.
Community too. It's that human experience that we don't get when we're behind a screen or behind the wheel, when we're, you know, part of this society that we live in, whether you live in LA or anywhere else, we're very disconnected from community. We just are. We don't have that tribal connection anymore.
Right. Especially like working from home or working in a coffee shop, like, you know, coffee shop more so community, but working from home, like, you know, pretty like isolated all day. I could stay in my pajamas all day and no one would know.
Exactly.
And not leave the house. So it's having that moment to, like you said, you know, be within a community, feel part of something. And also I think there's something to be said about, you know, you're offline for an hour, not by your phone. Yeah. Truly, like it is truly like a meditative practice. And I think, you know, if anything in this next year, like I really want to go deeper into meditation. I always feel like a new person every time I leave that class.
That's awesome.
Beautiful. I love that.
On that topic of feeling like a new person or being inspired in that way, this podcast is called Ignited. What gets you ignited?
Good question. I think like my, like I kind of started saying, my intention in starting my business was to work alongside companies that not only I'm super passionate, but are doing something good in the world. And the reality is like, I love working. It's really just for me about working with, you know, the companies that I want to work with and that are creating positive change. And I feel like really, I guess, lit up or ignited, working alongside these companies that are every day thinking about sustainability or how they can be more impact driven or how they can change people's health, how they can, you know, change people's lives ultimately. And I think that has ignited me in a lot of ways, just in my day to day. Just I think that, you know, just the passion I feel in my work.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. We know we're all about impact. We love that. Thank you so much for stopping by here with us, Lauren.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I followed you, Sophie, as you know, for so many years, and so inspired by your authenticity and your realness. And I love you guys as a couple too. So
thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. And I can't wait to continue checking in on this transition for you. It's really, really exciting. It's beautiful.
Yay.
Thank you. I so appreciate it.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Lauren.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. Love you all. See you next week.
See you next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you everybody for listening to the Ignited podcast. We were so happy to have you along for this ride. Please go and subscribe to this. Leave us a review. We love hearing from you. And if you want more, don't forget to go to ignited.com, where all the podcast episodes are available with show notes and so many of the little details and links from each one of these interviews. And you can look at all the future events that we have going on, all the things that make Ignited so special, even beyond this recording. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week.